To tell this story, I have to go back to the beginning, to the first time I learned that there is another realm, the supernatural one. I was 22 years old when I met Stefania. We were best friends for a few weeks. That was enough for me to fall in love, to realize that I would never feel what I felt in that moment again. It was enough for me to want to form a family with her and with Melissa, her daughter, who soon became mine as well, the light of my eyes, the greatest treasure I could have in this world. But they had something with them, something that followed them wherever they went. The shadow of Melissa's father, a presence that could be felt, a presence I could feel, threatening, aggressive. I'm not talking about something alive. That man had died just months after Stefania decided to leave him, but his mother, the mother of this man, sent something, I don't know if it was good or bad, but something, so that he would always be with them. It didn't matter how much Stefania tried to distance herself, to keep her daughter away from that terrible family. Even though they warned her about witchcraft and curses, Stefania decided not to believe anything. Her experiences made her think, to even consider that such things were real. Still, she knew that in the family of the man she had shared her life with, the one with whom she had a daughter, there were people who practiced strange rituals, especially her mother-in-law, who tried to stay in touch even after her son's death. But that was never a possibility for Stefania. Melissa had to be as far away as possible, as far away from her power, from that family. But the presence existed. She felt it. Melissa felt it. I myself was a witness to how real it could be. You see, I woke up one morning when I heard Melissa crying in her sleep. This happened relatively often. Stefania didn't wake up, so I got up to talk to Mealy. She always calmed down when I talked to her, and her bad dreams and cries would stop. She had a bunk bed in her room. When I entered to look for her, I noticed that she had left her stuffed animals on the bottom bed and had fallen asleep on the top one. Sometimes she did that. I approached, but it was completely silent. There was no sign that she had been having one of her nightmares. She looked so calm that I thought it had all been just a dream of mine. I quietly closed the door so as not to wake her. As soon as I did, I heard crying from inside, so I opened the door again. Everything was fine. I closed it again, but the crying was still there. I approached. It was clear it was coming from inside. When I opened the door, it fell. Immediately, as if there was something mocking me, something playing with me, I checked on Mealy. For a moment, I thought she might be playing a prank on me, but it wasn't something she would do. She was shy and very serious. She was breathing very deeply, almost snoring. There was no doubt she was deeply asleep. I thought it was just my imagination. I checked the bottom bunk. There was nothing but stuffed animals. I checked underneath it, only boxes and several pairs of shoes. There weren't even any closets or wardrobes in that room where someone could have hidden. The window was closed and no sound came from the street. It was completely still, empty and silent at that time of the night. No, it was definitely my imagination. I left the room again, but this time I just closed the door. But as soon as I did, something made a sound, softly, but something that caught my attention and made me stop. Something was moving inside the room. There was something there with Melissa. When I opened the door, I saw something that still seems like an image from a dream, a nightmare. Melissa was near the edge, her leg was flying as if something was pulling it down, as if someone was pulling her leg to make her fall. Melissa cried in her sleep, and I ran to stop her just as she started to fall. I barely managed to do it. There was something with them, something evil. Unfortunately, as you will see, this is not their story. Unfortunately, this is not the story of a family tormented by demons or ghosts. Unfortunately, I am alone, and this was only the beginning of my story, my community story. The story you will begin to know tonight is a very strong tale that will not leave you indifferent, one that will stay with you, I think, for a long time, and I hope we can take it with great maturity, with much prudence, with great calm, and without suggesting things to ourselves. But it is time to dive into it and thank those who have had the trust and courage to share it. And perhaps it is one of the most difficult stories to tell in the history of this project of stories at night. Let's live this story together. I will tell you something, and it's not to scare you, but I think our sensitivity to the world of the paranormal depends on us being in direct contact with it at some point, walking through a place, meeting a person, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's why there are so many stories like this in this place. That's why so many people start their stories with, "I didn't believe in ghosts," or "For me, the paranormal was just stories until it happened to me." And somehow that's how mine begins as well. I suppose that night when I saw something pulling Melissa to make her fall from the bed, something in me was activated. Since then, I began to be receptive to things around me and at first, to dreams that told me things that were about to happen. Neither good nor bad, just simple details, silly things, never anything important, but still strange. You know, dreaming that in the afternoon I would meet someone I didn't like, that the package I was expecting wouldn't arrive and was lost, that my mom would call to tell me things I didn't care about my aunts, and I wouldn't be able to hang up for half an hour even though I had very important things to do. Until a different dream came, blurry, vague, strange. I want to ask you, has anyone ever seen the death of someone they love in a dream? Worse still, have you seen it, knowing that sometimes you have dreams that tend to become reality sooner rather than later? I had such a damn dream where I lost everything I had ever cared about. This is the story of a journey, however, it begins at home. My name, I still won't share it with you, my dear community, but I have to tell you a few things about me. I was born, grew up, and lived my whole life until recently in a small town just a few miles from Los Angeles, California. I was always very close to my Mexican side, to my mother's family, not only because of the family but because of the visits I used to make with my best friend, almost like a brother, whose family was in Mexicali. In fact, back then we stayed in a room in his uncle's house, which they said was extremely haunted. They told stories there about a man who appeared all over the house and always went into that room. But neither my friend nor I ever felt anything strange, not even a little. That's why I tell you, I simply wasn't sensitive to it. I was a skeptic. I didn't think much about it, and there, precisely in Mexicali, I met Estefania, the best friend of my friend's sister. When she was introduced to me, we talked until very late, all four of us, until morning. On one of those hot mornings there, when you keep drinking beer to bear the heat, I learned her whole story. Just days before, she had managed to escape her previous relationship, literally escape. Her partner was a violent man who had gone completely crazy and chased her through the neighborhood with a knife. We continued that conversation once we returned to California. She became my best friend in just a few weeks, the love of my life in just a few hours, and although I always knew she felt exactly the same way about me, she needed time to detox from everything she had gone through in her past relationship. That's why, for almost 6 months, we went out just as friends. That's when I met Melissa, my girl, as a friend of her mother. She became the light of my eyes. When she finally agreed to be my girlfriend, the love we felt for each other was inevitable. Melissa's love for me and mine for her had grown so strong that we knew there was no turning back. Just a few months later, we found the perfect apartment to live together, close to the sea. We couldn't see it, but we could sometimes hear it when the weather was nice. When the street was calm, we would open the window to sleep, listening to it. One night, she received a call while the three of us were having dinner. It was her ex's cousin. I knew it was something important because Estefania answered. She never did when it was him or his family. But something in her that night made her pick up. Okay, I'll think about taking her, but if I do, it'll be for her, if she wants it, not for you, not for your family, and definitely not for him. When she hung up the phone, she took me to the kitchen and, with a mixture of sadness and relief, told me that her ex had died, that he had taken his own life. I didn't know how to respond, I didn't want to know. I think maybe she didn't know either, and it wasn't necessary. When she spoke with Melissa to tell her, the little girl at only 4 years old was as expressionless as her mother when she found out. The first thing she said was, "Don't make me go with them, I don't want to go to my grandmother's." So the decision was simple. She sent her condolences and informed them that they wouldn't attend the wake, that it wasn't healthy for either of them. It may sound harsh from the outside, but believe me, they had reasons not to go. Besides, the family had never cared about them, helped them, or resolved the violence they had endured. On the contrary, they believed it was their duty to endure it, that this man somehow had every right to do whatever he wanted. After they called her to say they wouldn't be going, her phone didn't stop ringing all night, again and again. First from her ex-mother-in-law's phone, which she quickly blocked, then from other family members, then from unknown numbers, even private ones, until she finally turned it off. As soon as she did, something strange happened. I will always remember it. We heard something on the roof, as if something had fallen, and then walked around, pacing relentlessly. I went out to check the street, the roof, but nothing looked unusual. No one in the house next door seemed to have heard anything either. I went back inside and told her everything was fine. However, I think in some way both of us knew that wasn't true. From that moment on, I felt something strange in the house. That's when it began. The three of us felt it, a sensation that was always there but became stronger at certain hours, in certain places. The clear and undeniable feeling that we weren't alone. Sometimes, when the three of us were in the living room watching movies, I would turn towards the darkness of her bedroom at the end of the hallway. We would wonder if she saw something, if everything was okay. But she always answered that it was nothing. That's when her night terrors began, the nightmares, and we learned to live with them. Despite everything, I rarely convinced her to sleep with us. She felt safer hugging her stuffed animals. And then it happened. That night arrived when I was sure that something I couldn't see wanted to throw her off her bed. That night, something awakened in me as well, something activated. First of all, I started remembering my dreams for the first